Hey, it's Jeff. Welcome back. Let's get started. Okay, so they castle the bishop on e7 and bishop on g5. One of them can take each other. We also have a rook on e1. Maybe that can line up against the e7 square at some point. The knight on c6 is the only piece guarding e7. So something like knight g3 attacks the queen and also gives us an extra attacker on e7. So knight g3, queen, let's say g6, then bishop e7, knight takes e7, rook takes e7. I don't see a good way for them to get out of it, and they can't do any threats to our queen, so I think it's just going to be knight g3. There's an alternate line, bishop e7 first, knight e7, then knight g3. They probably have some defense, and actually maybe like queen c5 would defend the knight. Yeah, so we attack the queen first, and this should be good. Okay, now we just take the bishop, and that was it. So I'm gonna go to analysis board. And let's see what the wrong moves were. So bishop takes e7 first, 6,900 times. Yeah, I just didn't like this because after this, and yeah, queen c5 is the move that defends everything. So in my calculation, I did look at that, and I did notice that queen c5 would be a way to get out of it. So sometimes you'll see a good idea in a position, like you're trying to do something against the e7 square, but the order of the moves can definitely make a difference. So always look for multiple orders to implement your idea, because then if you see that there's two ways to do your idea, it might force you to think a little bit harder about what the difference actually is. Sometimes they could both be right, but sometimes it could mean one of the solutions is definitely wrong for some reason. Okay, now let's see what else we got. Knight takes d4, move 1. Knight takes d4. Looks like it's just trying to pick up a pawn. And it might even be losing a piece. But, okay, so it's actually an even position. Oh, because you can do this. Wait, well, now it's winning for white. So queen g6 here. And now bishop takes. And this is an even position. So you're not really winning anything here. I don't know if the point was to try to win this queen. Because yeah, so after knight takes, this would be a mistake, because you could just take the queen. But they don't have to take on d4. They could just move the queen back. And I was also thinking, like, well, I thought maybe they lose a piece because you go here, but that would also hang the queen. All right, and then rook takes e7 on move 2. Okay, so this was just the wrong order because you took with a piece with a higher value. So they'll be able to take back what they take back. This is still a little bit winning for white, but not by as much. But the problem is actually the computer likes f6 here. So now they're attacking. Well, they could have just took in the first place. But let's say you move back So this is good for black. I don't understand why this isn't. What's the main difference between this line and the other line? Oh, I guess because you can just take the knight here. So yeah, so f6 before taking the rook is actually better for black. And like their best move is to just take this pawn. If you simply move back, you're not picking up this knight anymore with the bishop. So that might be a line that you try to see. But really, here, you shouldn't have to think too much about it because this 3 pawns recapturing a piece worth 5 pawns when you could just take here and maintain your material lead. Okay, so we'll try another one. Okay, so they have a pass pawn and a rook behind the pass pawn, which is good. We take the queen, it's not with check, unfortunately. And if we take their rook, they take our rook. We can take the b5 pawn after that, and then material's even. They have a pass c pawn, but it's probably going to be a draw. So we're looking for the win here. I'm wondering if a move like queen a3 does anything. We also have to be careful because they could just push b6. Like even if they give up the queen and they get a pawn to b7, it might be that we can't stop the pawn from promoting it anymore at some point. So what do we do here? We can go maybe queen c5, try to take on c2. And we could also take on a2 after, h2 after. Or maybe there'll be some mating net after, like the king gets to the 8th rank and the 1st rank, and we have some check on g1. Or does queen a5 make sense? Queen a5 actually stops queen d8 check. But I don't know if it has any major threats. I think if they go queen d8, it probably doesn't matter for us. We go to g7 and they don't have any more good checks immediately. So we can allow queen d8, I believe. But really the only forcing thing I see that we could do is queen c5, going for the c2 square. Let's say they go rook b2 then. Well, then we could just take the queen. So queen c5, they gotta move the queen somewhere, and then that c2 pawn will fall. So that's pretty much guaranteed. Let's say queen c5, they push the pawn, we take the queen. And queen a3, immediately, I don't see the follow-up. The queen can go to d2, and then we don't even have rook e3 check because the queen can take. So I'm really liking queen c5. They have to move the queen, and it will most likely be able to take the c2 pawn with check and have some initiative. And the h2 pawn could also fall, probably. And we'll just deal with picking up the passed pawn later. But we'll try to see if we can checkmate the king or do something. Or win the queen and then stop the pawn. But yeah, so I feel like it's gotta be queen c5. So we'll just play this. Alright, and so they just give us the queen. So make sure there's nothing else. After queen f2, they could just take the rook. So let's just take the queen. Okay, There's a quiet move tag here. Alright, analysis of the board. So queen takes b1 is the first mistake. It's definitely a move I looked at. Start queen takes c3, queen here, and this is just a dead draw. So you would have to see that they were, let me go back. You'd have to see that after you take their rook, you're losing defense of your rook, and so you're just gonna not have any more winning chances after that. Plus you're down a pawn, so you have to spend an extra move picking up the b5 pawn. And queen a3 on move 1. I considered that too, and like I said, queen d2, you don't really have this check, queen can just take, and we don't have any more good forcing moves. Again, something like this, it still hangs. This one might even be losing for black. Let's see. Yeah, this position is losing for black. And I also personally looked at this move, but it looks like queen d2, similar thing. And now we don't have any more good follow-ups. And yeah, that was queen a5 was the third most common mistake. So yeah, the key was after you move here, you're attacking this queen, and you also have more pressure on the c2 pawn. So they can't even block with the rook because you would just take. And so let's say they go here, you win the queen. And if they go somewhere else, you can still go here. And then even, I don't know if taking this pawn will be correct or not, but also if you go here, you get checkmate and 1. And actually same for here. So they can do something like this. Let's see, does rook h2 make sense? Yeah, so a lot of things probably win here. And apparently queen f2 is made in 6, and queen c3 here is made in 7. And queen a3 is, okay, it's going down, but it was 23, now it's down to mate in 17. But yeah, so there's a lot of checkmating opportunities here. White's king is exposed and in the center, and our king is much safer. They do have this passed pawn, but we'll be able to get to their king before. So we didn't have to figure out how we're gonna deal with stopping this pawn. The problem ended much sooner. So anyway, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.